When I first started my business, I had just graduated from fashion school. So I knew about the design fundamentals as it was part of learning about fashion design, but I had never studied graphic design and didn't really know much about branding either, other than observing and looking at things and also loving to play around with Photoshop all the time. I would often flick through magazines looking for inspiration for layouts and different designs, and I would wonder how they actually came up with it and how it all works and comes together. And so I'd just imitate things. Like I would look at a magazine layout and just imitate the layout the way they did a grid, although I didn't even realize at the time that that was following a grid design. But I would just look at the design and I'd be like, oh, that's really cool, and that makes it look really neat and well set out, so I'll do something similar for what I want to do. So when it came to designing my own branding for starting my new business, it was really just about experimenting and creating things that I thought looked pretty and fun. I didn't really have much in the way of design knowledge. So of course my brand went under many revisions. I was constantly experimenting with it. As I would discover new styles and learn new things, I would use my own brand as a guinea pig to test those ideas out on. And if somebody asked me what my style was, I would simply describe it as nostalgic, playful and feminine. But really, it was a bit chaotic in a way. Like it had a certain feeling, I guess you could say, but it was messy. There was constantly different change, different new things I was playing with, experimenting with, and it didn't really have a clear, direct style. So of course, after studying graphic design, I got a lot better at branding. I understood the whole process so much better and how to design a brand properly. But that didn't completely cure me. Of course, I still used my own brand to test out ideas and experiment. And it often felt so impossible to design for myself. I thought, well, how does anyone design for themselves? You don't have a brief like you get from a client. There aren't those restrictions, and the ideas are just so endless, and I wanted to show people all the things that I can do and all that I'm capable of. And so I was constantly changing and experimenting with my own brand. So I have definitely learnt the hard way the problems with experimenting with your own branding and using it as a guinea pig for your creativity. So in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about why you shouldn't be using your brand as a guinea pig and how you can create better consistency for your branding. So the top mistakes that creatives make when it comes to creating their own visual branding are basing your branding and your business on your own personal tastes only. Obviously, you want to inject some of yourself into your brand and your own personality and things that you like into it. But if you base it solely on those things, then you're not going to have a strong brand, because our personal tastes and interests are constantly changing. Think about it, the things that you were into and things you liked 10 years ago are probably changed a lot now. And so if we completely base it on our own interests and likes, then it's going to naturally constantly be changing, because we're going to be constantly changing ourselves. And so it shouldn't be based on that. Plus, we want to be making sure that we consider our audience and also what our business is about. So if we cut off those things and only make it all about ourselves, then we're not properly connecting with people or showing them what our business is actually all about. It just becomes a personal brand where it's just completely about you. And unless you're a celebrity, then you need to think beyond yourself. The next mistake is never taking the time to create a clear brand concept. Do you skip steps? Do you just simply quickly put together a brand and, create something pretty rather than going step by step through the design process and really nutting out what's best for your business? A lot of creatives do this. We just want to quickly throw something really cool together without taking the time to properly go through a process and actually laying out a strong visual direction. Another big mistake is, just winging it. Similar to the last one, you're just making it up as you go, not going through a proper process. You're just, picking out some great fonts, picking out some colors, just putting it all together, and you're basically just winging it. You're not doing it properly. Another common mistake is comparing what everyone else is doing to what you've tried to create. Looking at everyone else's beautiful brands and their beautiful logos and how they've created their work, and you find yourself getting too lost in what everyone else is doing rather than focusing on creating something that is uniquely your own. So even if you come up with something that's really good and could potentially be the perfect thing for your brand, but then you start looking at what everyone else is doing and they've done something really cool and they've done something really cool and I quite like that. And you start to doubt your own branding, and you start wanting to pick little ideas here and there from other people and creating a scrapbook brand where it's a little bit of everything rather than just sticking to your own strong, unique style. And the final mistake is not considering your audience. So I said before that it's important, it's not just all about you. Also very important that you don't forget your audience. Who are they? What do you want them to feel? What's their current lifestyle? What do they want to achieve? Really getting to know them and making sure that your branding speaks to them. It's not enough to just hope that the right people find your stuff and thinking, well, I just want to do what I want to do and the right people will like that. But actually really getting to know what are the kind of people you like to attract? What are the kind of people that you like to work with? And how can you make sure that your branding appeals to them? This doesn't mean you have to water yourself down, but it just means that you're making sure you're considering them and, making sure that you're highlighting the right things that are going to really appeal to them and attract them. All right, so why do you need to define your style rather than just treating it like an experiment? Having a clear direction is so important when it comes to your visual branding. It'll help you gain clarity, which means no more doubting, no more second guessing, no more trying different things, but you are clear about the direction you're going. And that way, every time you work on some graphics for your brand, you have a direction and you know, this is my style, this is the way we do things for this brand, and you're not wasting time. You're really defined and you know your brand style. You also will steer away from trends and fads. So you're not going to get caught up in what's really cool and hot right now and trying to put that into your branding. Rather, you're just sticking with your brand style. This doesn't mean you can't use trends in other ways, like in the work that you're producing. But when it comes to your actual branding, it's important that we try to steer clear of those trends so that we don't find ourselves constantly wanting to change things up all the time to keep up with the latest stuff. But instead, we have something that's a lot more timeless. Obviously, over time, you might want to make little tweaks here and there to update it, but you don't want to completely do an overhaul all the time. You want to have some kind of consistency. Even the big brands that have been around for a long time, think about things like Coca-Cola or Apple. Yes, they have changed over time, but it's not major overhauls. It's more little tweaks and adjustments to make it more contemporary and now. Another important reason to be defining your brand is so that your brand will be telling a story, a message, so that it will be communicating something and it won't be just looking pretty, but you're actually considering what is it I want to communicate visually and making sure that you're weaving that into your branding so that it really is resonating with people and it's putting a message out there. Even if it's a very subtle, subliminal message, it is putting out a message. And you're also going to end up with a brand that is much longer lasting. You want something that you can stick with and be consistent with, because consistency creates memorability. If you can find a style that is perfect for your brand and you stick with it for a long time and remember you, and when they come across your graphics on big platforms like Facebook or Pinterest, they instantly recognize it as coming from you. That you become memorable, and that is a very valuable thing. And finally, it will help you attract the right people, because if you spend the time thinking about how to attract the right people to your branding, then you're more likely to actually attract the right people, to be speaking their visual language so that you connect with them. And if you want a bit more help with defining a visual style for your branding, then you'll find in the description box below, I have a link to a free email course which actually helps you go through the steps so you can define a style for your brand. It doesn't show you how to actually brand, it shows you how to get that clear direction, that really important starting point, so that when you go to create your branding and you go to design it, that you have that really solid foundation, so that you're not tempted to constantly change your mind and experiment with different things, but rather you're going to have a solid direction that you will stick to and be consistently sticking. So let's go back to my story. So my own turning point from the days when I was constantly experimenting and using my brand as a guinea pig, what was it that stopped me doing this and finally got me consistent? Well, it began with a very rough year in business. In fact, my roughest, lowest year of all. I had a 2-year-old toddler and I just had a new baby as well. So I was trying to juggle a baby and a toddler. So I was tired and exhausted and had hardly any time for my business. And so I found myself starting to pull at straws. I was trying to work out, how can I make money with all this other stuff going on? I found myself just trying out all sorts of silly ideas and new business ideas. It was all a bit silly and crazy, that by the end of the year, I realized I had to get more serious. I needed to create more solid foundations that I could build upon, rather than constantly starting fresh with new ideas and different things, but rather deciding this is the way I want to take my business, and I want really solid, clear foundations for every part of my business. And that included my own branding as well. Because I knew I couldn't be wasting time anymore. I couldn't be wasting time experimenting, changing ideas, trying new things out, but rather I had to be serious and say, no, this is the direction I'm going for my brand. This is the direction I want to take my business. This is, my game plan as such. I wanted to be real clear about that so that I wasn't wasting any time and I could build a business that worked around my life. And by really nutting out that process and really taking the time to go through it properly and create a clear brand direction and guideline, I finally put an end to my experimentation and finally got myself on track. And so I truly believe that anyone can do it. It's time to finally put an end to those experimenting days and treating your brand and your business like a guinea pig. It's time to get serious, stop wasting time, start getting consistent, and define a clear and distinct style for your brand. So of course, don't forget, if you want more help with this, don't forget to check out that link in the description for the free email course, because that will give you some of those question prompts to go through to help you dig deep, so that even if you know the design process but you're finding it hard to do it for yourself, this will help you go even deeper so that you can get past those difficulties. And of course, if you have a creative business and you want more tips about branding and creativity and graphic design, then be sure to subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you next time.